We'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which this podcast was produced, the Gadigal People of the Eora Nation. We pay our respects to elders past and present.
Sister picks up the phone and basically says, I have your brother Nigel with Amanda Lindhout. We're demanding $1.5 million each US, so $3 million ransom demand. If you don't pay within the next 24 hours, we'll execute them.
Welcome back to Headgame. My guest today is Nigel Brennan, who survived being kidnapped in Somalia in 2008 whilst working as a photojournalist. To hear part one of this incredible story, I'll drop the link in the show notes. Here's the second half of my conversation with Nigel Brennan.
Did they think that it was a prank call, or what was the reality back home when they got that phone call?
So I hadn't told any of my family what I was doing. So I'd literally told two mates I went to university that what I was planning to do. So I told Mum I was going to Kenya. Mm-hmm. So Mum was like, no, Nigel's in Kenya. He's not in Somalia. And I think Matt, my brother, grabbed an atlas and, obviously opened up Africa and was like, look, Mum, Somalia's right next door to Kenya.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
And the fact that they'd said Amanda's name, and I'd obviously had relationships with Amanda a few years earlier, they were like, basically all the dots are coming together.
Two and two together.
This is, the likelihood is Nigel is in Somalia with Amanda.
And when was the first time that the Australian embassy was informed? Was it shortly after? Did your family call the Australian embassy? Or?
My family called, I believe, Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade directly after that phone call and said, we've just received a phone call saying that Nigel's been kidnapped. And I believe DFAT's response was, we cannot either confirm or deny whether Nigel has been kidnapped or not.
Wow. So, they knew.
Which, again, was, I think, the cat and mouse with the family and the Australian government that went on for the next 12 months, which, from my point of view, coming home and seeing what my family had to deal with in terms of dealing with the Australian government was really frustrating. Was it?
So straight away, Amanda gets sexually assaulted. What happens to you? Does anything like that happen to you?
Not
any beatings?
No beatings.
No.
Basically,
mock executions.
Nope.
No.
During the abduction, we weren't blindfolded or anything like that. Just the fear, I think, of someone coming in with an AK-47 and sort of sitting it on their lap, pointing it at you and wanting information. Obviously, 5 months into our ordeal, we escape.
Tell me about that. Wow. Wow. So I talk about conjuring up a plan. Maybe due to my training, I would have started straight away. So after a few months, you obviously get to know the guards, you get to know the location, you get to know a bit of a routine.
Yep.
How does that pan out? And when do you decide, right, it's time to get out of here?
The escape came around really after our three colleagues had been taken out of the house and never returned. So let me go back a little bit. Amanda and I convert to Islam after 10 days. As a survival technique, Smart. I guess. Yep. We were kept together for the first 2 months and then we're actually separated after 2 months. Their reasoning is, as a Muslim man and a woman that are unmarried, we shouldn't be sharing the same room. It's a way for them to conquer and divide, I think, apply more pressure.
Absolutely.
So my concern for Amanda sort of intensifies at that stage because I'm not in a room and I can't protect her. During the next 3 months of our separation, she's taken out twice and they basically do mock execution before they put her on the phone.
So she's getting the brunt of everything, basically.
Yes. And it's
and they always pick one. It's a technique that they use. They always pick one to try and break the other down.
Well, I think the reason, I'm guessing at this, but when we were first taken in the kidnap for ransom world, extortion response world, we talk about, I guess, putting a safety net under hostages, like offer a small amount of money to keep hostages safe. So my dad had basically put $25,000 straight on the table. So when the head guys used to come in and talk to me, they would say, your situation is good, Australian government is working with us, Canadian government's causing problems. So I think the kidnappers had sort of used that as a way to really apply pressure to Amanda and her family.
And also show, if you play ball, this is how you get treated. If you don't, then this is how you get treated.
Absolutely.
It's a massive head game, massive head fuck, should we say. It messes with your mind and, almost to the point where, you want to be on your side, right?
Yeah. We're separated. I think Amanda and I were allowed to sit together on 2 occasions. I think the first time was for about 4 hours. The next time was for 2 hours. And as a hostage or a prisoner, you work out very quickly ways of communicating when you're separated, and, started through knock codes. And we were leaving little messages for each other in the toilet, in the back bathroom that we shared in this house. But you do get into a rhythm. We were sort of moved every 4 to 6 weeks to a different house, and we were somewhere in the north of Mogadishu. So there was always a routine on how we were moved. Mm-hmm. So at this stage, Abdi and the 2 drivers are still in the house. They're being sort of kept in another room in complete darkness. I can see them from our room occasionally and sort of wave, and Abdi's sort of saying, "Where's the money?"
Oh, really?
Well,
He's thinking about himself. He's just like, pay now so we can get the hell out of here.
Yeah. So I'd always, we talked about escape, and I'd been looking at the house that we're in, and it's like, is there a way of getting out? And, you've got a 12-foot high wall with razor wire on it. That's not a possibility. I'd been able to sort of sneak out of my room. We were never locked in our rooms. The doors were always shut, and you just had guards that would sort of roam occasionally. So you never sort of really knew when they were going to come past. So I'd looked in the kitchen, could see up into a manhole and could see the tin roof, and was like, maybe we can punch our way through there and do a bolt. And it's like, well, no, that's going to be too noisy. But Amanda and I had discussed, I guess, particularly after her, fake assassination, sort of things that they'd done on her, the possibility of escaping. And for me, it was like, well, again, didn't feel ethically right for the 2 of us to get out, and the 3 Somalians would end up as collateral damage potentially. So once they were taken out of the building one night, next morning, Jamal, one of our young captors, came in, and I said, "Where's Abdi? Where are the 2 drivers?" And he'd explained that they had been released back to their families, and every morning our windows were open, and Amanda and I used to knock up the wall to come to the window so that we could communicate with each other secretly, in quiet voices. And both of us were really excited, sort of saying, "Oh, this is great. Finally something's starting to happen. If they've released them, this is a good sign." And again, your head starts to play tricks on you, and it's like, well, hang on. If they were released and they're locals, they would know where we're being held, and the group would probably want to move us fairly quickly so that we're in another location. Yeah. And captors didn't seem in any sort of rush to move us. So then it's like, you start overthinking things. And then another young captor came in who terrified me, this young guy, absolutely scared the shit out of me. And I said to him, "Oh, it's great news that Abdi's and the other guys have been released to their family." And he laughed in my face and he said, "Who told you that?" And I said, "Jamal." And he said, "Well, Jamal lied." He said, "They were handed over to Al-Shabaab last night, and this morning all 3 of them were beheaded for working with Westerners." And again, it's that
mind game.
It's like, and by that stage, our windows had been closed, so I couldn't communicate with Amanda. But, for the next 14 hours, it's just like, that's probably the reality.
We need to get out of here.
Yeah,
we need to get out of here.
Yeah, those guys are no longer here. Let's basically just...
So you forge a plan to escape. How well does it go?
It went really well to start off with. So where Amanda was being held in her room, she looked straight down the hallway to where our guards were situated on the front veranda. And her eyesight was obviously quite poor, but with a little pinhole in the metal door, she could see down to the front. So whenever we wanted to go to the toilet, we had to bang on our door and wait for a guard to come and basically, say, "Yep, you can go." So by this stage, I'd learned a little bit of Arabic. I'd learned some Somali. Just, "Please, thank you. Can I go to the toilet? Can I speak to this person? Can you please help me?" Had learnt a couple of surahs of the Quran, how to say the profession of faith, those sorts of things. So I'd been looking in our bathroom, and it was about 6 foot off the ground, obviously Besser brick sort of blocks, but the ladder style ones that you could look through that they use in Africa. I'd looked at that and could just see it was dabbed with mortar on the corners. The problem was there was these 5 metal bars running across in front of them. So I thought I'll jump up on one of these bars and pull myself up onto the window, and as I jumped up, the whole thing sort of slid. So I was like, oh, it's not core filled, like that moves. So I basically sort of quietly pushed and pulled it until I could see the end of the metal, and then bent the piece of metal and could get it out. And I said to Amanda, went back and knocked on the door, and we went to the window. I said, right, I've got a way. I need you to be my eyes and ears. So I'm basically going to sneak out of the room. If you see someone coming, you bang on the door as though you want to go to the toilet. So I had a little pair of nail clippers with one of the, little files that came out at the end, and over the next 2.5 days basically chiseled out this mortar, took out 2 of the bars, went back after 2.5 days and said to Amanda, right, we're good to go. What's the plan?
Wow, proper Shawshank Redemption there. You grab her and...
Well, pretty much once I was separated from Amanda, I was allowed to go outside once a week for an hour and do washing, and could obviously see planes before they sort of disappeared behind the wall, and thought that must have been Mogadishu Airport, because we knew we were fairly close to Mogadishu. So I said to Amanda, right, let's go after. We'd both agreed that we would go after final prayer. We'd get out basically very quietly and then just run in that direction. Problem with that is Mogadishu streets aren't like normal Western streets that are nice and long. It's like a rabbit warren. So I said to Amanda, basically, after final prayer, you knock on the door. I'll follow you out, truck and trailer, into the bathroom. I'll take out the bars, take out the blocks, and bang, we can slip out. So first attempt, get the blocks out, get the bars out, push Amanda up onto the ledge of the window, and she's contorting herself, and she turns around and she says, I can't fit. And I'm just like, fuck, you gotta get out. Like, this is our chance. And realise that she can't fit. Like, I need to take out another bar and it's too noisy. So send Amanda back to her room, and then so I'm sitting in this bathroom looking at this gaping hole in the wall and knowing that, one of the guards could walk into the bathroom at any stage. So then over the next 4 hours, I basically feign that I have diarrhea and that I need to go to the bathroom again and again as I rebuild the Bessiblick roll and put the rods in, finally do it, fall asleep, have the best night's sleep of my entire captivity, and wake up in the morning, go and basically remove another bar without even Amanda knowing. And then said, right, got a new plan, because she had explained that whilst they were taking her out on one of those fake assassinations, she said basically the streets were lined with with guys with AK-47s, and I was like, we're going to literally get out of the house and run straight into potentially Al-Shabaab or someone like that. And I said, look, we're Muslim. There's a mosque right on top of us because the call to prayer was so loud. I said, if I was in a Western country and I couldn't go to the police, I'd go to a church, because hopefully you'd find people there that would help you. So I said, today's Thursday, tomorrow is Friday, busiest day of the Muslim week. Let's go on Friday. And she said, love the idea, but what happens if they move us tonight? I was just like, fuck you.
Yeah, that seed of doubt in your head.
Yeah.
Like, why did you put it there?
Yeah. So I said, right,
let's go.
Midday today, we'll go. Same thing. Basically follow her out into the bathroom, throw all the blocks out, throw the 3 bars out, watch her disappear. I jump out, throw our bags out, throw my shoes out, get onto the ground, pulling on my shoes. And like, I'm thinking we're going to have a minute or 2 head start, and this kid next door basically starts screaming in Somali, and I literally pull on my shoes, put on my my camera bag and run. And again, like, my brain just goes to complete mush. And so we're sort of in between 2 houses, our house and the next door neighbour's house, which I could have touched putting my hand through the window. Run down between the 2 houses, no turning left will take us back to the front gates of our compound. So the only option is to turn right. And I just literally, it's like I'm running on air. I just sprint. I have no idea where Amanda is. Come past our next door neighbour's compound. I look over my shoulder and I can see this guy standing at his front compound gate. And he says in English, "What are you doing?" And I just keep running, it computes, but I don't respond. I get to a T intersection. I can see the mosque minaret. I look to my left. I can see like a main road with lots of markets, and I just think safety in numbers. Yeah. So I turn left and I start running. So not going to the mosque, which was the plan. Yeah.
Completely just making up as you go
along.
Oh,
yeah. And then I hear Amanda saying, "What are you doing?" And I basically do a 180, run past back her, get to that T intersection. again, and the next door neighbour is standing there and he says, "Do you need help?" And I'm like, just grab him under the arm. And I said, "We've been kidnapped." By this stage, Amanda catches up and we're like, "Can you please help us? Can you take us to the mosque? Where is it?" And he's like, it's literally right there. So we basically sprint to the mosque, run up the side stairs, and just as we're about to enter, there's a warning shot from an AK-47 behind us that goes over our heads. Run into the mosque, and there's obviously men everywhere. And I start saying in Somali, like, "I win, I win, I win. Please help, please help, please help. One ahe Muslim, one tahe Muslim. I'm Muslim, we are Muslim." And then say the profession of faith, "Bismillahi ar-Rahmani ar-Rahim, alhamdulillah." And then two other guys, older gentlemen, Somali gentlemen, come over and they're speaking English to us. And then the next thing, I just get king hit from behind like a coward punch. So Jamal and Abdullah, who was the younger, angry guard, are obviously seconds behind us. So Jamal's punched me in the back of the head. He's now got me by the arm and he's trying to pull me back out the door, and I rip the sleeve off my shirt. Amanda has a hijab ripped off and he's got Amanda by the back of the hair and he's trying to pull her out. And then these three older Somali men just grab these two young kids who've got AK-47s on them and just grab them by the throat and push them up against the wall, and they're screaming at them. And then this crowd sort of envelops us and somebody else is speaking English. "You know, who are you? What's happened? You know, I'm Nigel Brennan, Australian photojournalist. We've been kidnapped for the last 5 months. You're Muslim, one ahe Muslim, we are Muslim. Do you want to pray?" It's like, yeah, I want to pray. I've never prayed in a mosque. So they sort of push us into the middle of the mosque and then they put us into the pulpit. And we're sitting there and I sort of say it's like the Bush Telegraph goes out, that there's obviously two Westerners now in the north of Mogadishu, and more people are sort of flooding in to get a look at us.
Yeah.
I'm pulling out my Quran, and we'd received a care package. It was while we were still together, but one of the books was 1,000 Splendid Suns. And in that book, they talk about how Muslims kiss the book and put it to their head. And I'm like, oh, this is obviously what you do as a Muslim. So I've got my Quran, I'm doing that. And the Somalis are looking at me like, what is this fucking weirdo doing?
What are you doing?
So I'm pulling out all my religious books. I got the driest throat, you know, I think from fear and stress and shock. And I can remember looking over my left shoulder in the pulpit and there's a window there and I can see a big black figure, and I'm like, can we please shut those windows? Because I thought someone was just going to stick a gun through and shoot us. And it was actually a woman. So they closed the windows. That woman actually pushes her way into the mosque and comes and sits between Amanda and myself. So there's like mayhem going on. Like, it's hard to describe, sort of just trying to talk to people, understand what's going on, seeing, I guess, the fear that's in the building as well at one point, where everyone starts to run away from us. And as they spread out, I can see guys just racing in with AK-47s and masked faces, and it's just like...
Do you know what? If I didn't know that you were captive for 15 months, then I'd hold a bit of hope for you. But obviously, you were handed back over, right?
Yeah, we were recaptured. I think my fear at that moment... Look, part of the escape for me was like, I'm going to take back control. If I'm going to die in Somalia, I'm actually going to make someone work for it.
Yeah.
I'm not just going to take a bullet in the back of the head. Like, you're going to have to kill me. But I think the reality of watching these guys now flood in, it was just like, this is going to end in an absolute bloodbath. Like, so many people are going to die here today. Not just us, but locals as well. Yeah. So Amanda's trying to communicate with this woman, basically points at herself, then uses the international sign for fornication and points at one of the young guards, and this woman starts screaming. And then the next minute I see our head guys come through the side door with pistols and guns and stuff. They sort of walk around the crowd, come back behind us, you know, getting smashed by the butt of a pistol. And so I sort of go into fetal position. Amanda gets grabbed by the hair and she's sort of dragged past me over to the other side of the mosque where there's a set of doors. Like, I'm trying to watch what's going on with her, trying to protect myself. And then maybe 10, 15 seconds later, I just hear a single gunshot. And I'm like, fuck, they've just executed her. Like, that's all that I can think. And the reality of my life is pretty much I've got minutes to live, I reckon. So the guys that have taken Amanda come back. Again, I'm kicked and punched, and then I feel someone grab me by the ankles, and I'm then dragged basically to the front doors of the mosque, dragged down some concrete steps, and it was so weird. I sort of explained this as a moment of clarity where I was really clear, wasn't scared of dying, but it was just like, I really wish I could just call mum and dad and tell them how much I love them and how sorry I am for the anxiety and the pain that I've caused for the last 5 months.
Wow, you was expecting everything to end there and then.
Yeah, get sort of picked up by 6 or 8 guys above heads, and I can see the gates of the courtyard of the mosque, and I realise once I'm off hallowed turf, like they're going to execute me. Get through those gates, sort of look over to my left, can see the 2 vehicles that we're always transported in, can see Amanda in the back seat still fighting, trying to get away.
So you know she's alive at this
She's
point.
alive, yeah. So it's just like, oh my God, like sweet relief. I'm bundled in beside Amanda. Abdullah and Jamal, the 2 young guards, jump in beside each of us. I can see that Amanda's taken a punch to the face because her eye's starting to sort of swell up, and she looks at me. She's got this stupid grin on her face, and she goes, "Fuck, that was intense."
So sort of breaks the silence, right?
Yeah. And then looking at Abdullah, the young guy who pulls his pistol out and puts it in his mouth and basically, fakes pulling the trigger. And it's just like, right, they're probably just going to drive us out into the bush now and execute us away from eyes and ears. And we were taken to another house, interrogated for, I think, it seemed like about 3 hours. And then at the end of that interrogation, one of the young guards walked in with a bag of chains and padlocks, and then they basically padlocked our legs together.
Things changed drastically from the moment you tried to escape. You were treated differently. No more Mr. Nice Guy.
No.
And then for the next 10 months onwards, you're living in hell, basically.
So for the next 11 months, those chains were taken off for a total of 2 hours.
Wow. So you're completely chained up.
Yeah. Chained up, not allowed to exercise, basically forced to lie or sit 24 hours a day. The only time I can get up is to wash for prayer. If I want to go to the bathroom, I've got to knock a cup on the floor, and it's, they don't even use my Muslim name at that stage. They just, that means I can go to the toilet. So it's like you become this animal in some.
What was your Muslim name?
Noah.
Noah.
Yeah. At the start, they called me Muhammad, and they used to be like, Muhammad. Yeah. I'm like, oh, you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Because you're so used to your name.
Of course, yeah.
And I said, can I at least have something that starts with an N?
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah, for the next 11 months, it became, I guess, me trying to change my mindset of, I think having had Amanda for those first 2 months, it was amazing to go through that experience with someone. And in the first weeks, I was really negative, and she was like, if you think we're going to die here, we will die here. If that's the energy you're putting out. So for me, it was about, okay, how do I take control of this situation? Like, yes, I can't determine when I go to the toilet or when I eat or go outside and see the sun and the sky and those sorts of things. But it's like, they can beat the shit out of me. They can threaten me. The only thing that they can't actually touch is my mind. And that's,
can't take away from me is the way I think.
Yeah.
Is your mind.
Yeah. So
how liberating is that?
Oh, it was, and that was such a powerful thing to be able to change your mindset. And look, when you're stuck in 4 walls for 14 hours a day, and that's the way I looked at it. I broke my day myself. It was like, it doesn't matter what happened yesterday. It doesn't matter what happens tomorrow. All I can basically control is what I do in the next 14 hours, because you wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning for prayer, and then final prayer was at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock at night. It's like, I've just got to fill the next 14 hours of stuff.
And what were you sleeping on?
A tiny little mattress and a mosquito net and basically a pillowcase filled with clothes.
Wow. So after 16 months, 15 months, you get released.
Yep.
How does it come about? Is it one of those where it's just a case of you get a knock on the door and it's like, you're going home, or did they preempt you?
We'd had a discussion maybe 3-4 weeks earlier with Ahmed, one of the head guys, and he'd come in and he said, if everything goes to plan tonight, you'll be released. That didn't happen. The next time I saw him, he said, your family has basically broken its promise. We're now going to sell you to Al-Shabaab. So they've offered $2 million US. They have a bigger organisation. They can move you around the country. They can hold you for as long as they want, which was terrifying to think that I'd created this relationship with 13 people to then go to a new organisation of people I didn't know. It was like basically starting from scratch again. And then one day we'd been moved to Keshmayo, and then we'd been moved back to Mogadishu, and they came in and basically said, stand up, don't ask questions. They tried to unlock the padlocks, and because they'd been on for so long, they'd rusted, so they had to go and find a hacksaw to cut them off. And I kept saying to Abdullah, the young guy, it's like, what's going on? And he just said, shh, don't ask questions. Was told to strip, put on new clothes, and then was frog marched out of the room, put into a car, and I could see Amanda in the courtyard. They were doing the same thing to her, cutting off her chains. And she was put into the car beside me, and it's just like, what's going on? Neither of us knew. We'd taken out of that compound, driven to a petrol station where they refilled the car, and Ahmed was there. And I'd made this loose agreement, and I think he'd done this with Amanda as well. Like, there was, if they released us, we had to basically agree to 5 things. One would be that we would pay them more money once we got back to our countries, wouldn't talk about our experience, we would never leave the religion of Islam. And he just said, look, do you still agree on those 5 things? It's like, yep. Here's a document, sign it. It's like, there you go. We then sort of drive into the night, pick up another car in a convoy, and we end up pulling up in the darkness, basically in the middle of nowhere. There's a station wagon car there. We're taken out of our vehicle, thrown into that, to obviously Somalian guys in the front seat. Ask who we are, our names, sort of identify ourselves, phone calls made. And just before we drive off, because they'd taken my Quran at this stage, and I said, no, that's my holy book, I need it, because I thought we were about to be handed over to Al-Shabaab. Abdullah basically opened the door, threw it on my lap, closed the door, and then we drove off. So we're now in a car with 2 complete strangers, drive along a dirt road, turn left onto a bitumen road, we're absolutely flying along, and then 2 Toyota Traybacks sort of come out of nowhere with 50 cal guns on the back of them. And then we're surrounded by about 50 guys in civilian clothing with AK-47s. And I'm like, this can't be happening again. Another Toyota pulls up, we're dragged out of our car, put into that. And both Amanda and I are pretty hysterical by this stage because we don't know what's going on. And the guy's like, why are you so upset? And it's like, well, I don't know if I said it or I thought it's just like, well, I don't see any white people.
Yeah.
And he's like, no, you've been released. And it's like, still don't believe this.
Yeah, didn't compute.
And it wasn't until he pulled out a phone and obviously dialed some numbers and gave the phone to Amanda, and then she spoke to her mum and said, you guys have been released. We've finally negotiated a price.
Wow. So a ransom was paid.
Yeah. Yeah, so about $675,000 US.
Wow. And that all came from your parents' pocket?
Yeah.
Well, it's better than $3 million, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Look, the other thing that when my family left the Australian government, they employed a private K&R company for 3 months, and their cost was about the same as the ransom. So it was close to a $1.3 million experience.
And did you adhere to the 5 rules? Any of them?
None.
None. Mate, you're out of contract. Yeah.
Well, it's funny because Ahmed emailed me shortly after I got home. He's like, oh, we have an appointment to speak. So I just gave that straight to the Australian Federal Police to see if they could track him down. Look, out of the whole thing, there was only one guy that was ever arrested, which was Adam, the guy that was obviously the communication expert for the kidnap group. He was arrested in Canada.
Wow. And a quick question before we finish. Do you think it was an inside jobby? Do you think you were stitched up?
I think everything sort of points in that direction. Because our kidnappers said they knew that there were 4 journalists working in 2 teams. They knew exactly how many drivers we had. They knew exactly how many security detail. But one thing that Ahmed did say to us very early on, I think in the first couple of months, he said we were actually expecting 2 men. One of them was French and one of them was Belgium, but we knew the Belgian guy was actually an American citizen, which was the National Geographic team.
Wow. So you weren't even...
We weren't even...
The bait.
So they said they were incredibly surprised to see a female in the car. So,
Wrong place,
what
wrong
we
time.
didn't realise was when the morning we left, the Nat Geo team had actually made a detour to stop somewhere, so we'd become the lead car.
How's your luck?
Shit luck.
Wow, $1.3 million later. And
Yeah.
how are your parents right now? Which I think
They're really good. Look, it absolutely took its toll on my family,
Yeah.
emotionally, financially. You know, when you're dealing with, I guess, a loved one, and I think in the kidnap game as well, you know, a family will do whatever they can to get
Of course.
a member of their family back. And I think their struggle was obviously dealing with the Australian government. But yeah, look, I think they were incredibly happy to get me home. I know my brother Ham gave me a big hug and he said, "I love you, but you're a fucking idiot." And he said, "I'm giving you a couple of weeks to get fit and then I'm going to..."
I could have told you that, Nigel.
Yeah.
I could have told you that. Mate, it's been great chatting with you. So what are you doing now, mate?
So look, over the last decade, I've worked for 3 of the sort of major international kidnap for ransom extortion companies. Spent up until about a year ago, was also moonlighting and working at the University of Tasmania. But at the moment, I've just gone back to study.
And do you have any more dangerous journeys or dangerous exploits on the cards? Or are you completely put off now?
No, not at all. Like,
No.
I love traveling. Like, I love going, seeing other cultures and other countries and those sorts of things. And, you know, I did a little bit of work in Africa and everyone's like, "Are you stupid?" It's like, well, it's not all dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And there's some amazing countries in the world too.
And by the sounds of it, mate, wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully your family won't go through any of that again, and you'll be a good boy, and you won't make any rash decisions. But listen, next time you go anywhere like that, mate, give me a shout.
I will. Don't
I'll
worry.
look after you. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Ant.
Nigel Brennan is a photojournalist and his book is called The Price of Life. Thank you so much for joining me on Head Game. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss any of our incredible stories, and leave me a review wherever you're listening. I'm Matt Middleton. Catch you again next time.